Hi everybody, I'm back. Steven here. What we're going to do is take a look at some subframe connectors. We're going to talk about what they are, how to install them, and am I going to see any benefit from them, right? I got one little test I'm going to do. It may be conclusive, it may not sure. You're going to have to stick around to the end of the video to find out. See you in a bit. Thank you. Thanks for sticking around. So what we're going to do here is we're going to take a look at some subframe connectors. Oh, I almost dropped it. These ones here are Global West. I'm not sponsored by them. For a 71, 2, and 3 Mustang, there's a few available brands out there. Two that come to mind, I'm not sponsored by any of these, is one is Global West, and the other one is Fabric, I think it's Fabric Man, if I remember correctly. Anyways, Fabric Man, Fabrication Man, or whatever. You know what? I'm going to have to fix that. I messed that up. Anyways, let's cut. Okay, delete. Hi, everybody. Thanks for sticking around. What we're going to do is take a look at installing a subframe connector. We're actually going to talk about what they are. I'll mention that shortly. We'll take a look at how to install them. And this will be specifically on my 73 Mustang Convertible for those who've been following the channel. I'll leave a link to where I got these ones. And then I'll do a test to show you a couple of things. So you'll see that at the end. Do we see an improvement in a certain area, right? And I'll explain more about that a little later on. There's different types of subframe connectors out there. There is, right now I'm using the Global West subframe connector. I'm not sponsored by them. The reason why I'm using this, they're available in Canada. They had models specifically for the convertible. So if you've got a 71, 2, or 3 Mustang, Global West does make subframe connectors for those. There's also models specific to convertibles. I'll leave links for that in the comments below. There's also other models, other brands out there, Tin Man being another one. I was looking at them. Didn't look like they had one specific for the convertible. Looks like there was some cutting you had to do. Anyways, at the time, I didn't really hear back from them. I waited a while and a couple months and still didn't hear back from them. So I went with what I could get up here in Canada without having to worry about the duty and imports headache and stuff like that. So we're going to take a look at that. Now, what is a subframe connector? It basically, just like what it says, it's a subframe connector. It connects subframes. So let's take a look at the Mustang, and I'll show you what I mean by that. And then we'll take a look at how do we install this and a couple of things. So let me go and change the angle of the camera so we can take a look at the Mustang, okay? Okay, so we're back. You see the Mustang's up on my lift. Now, before any of you start freaking out for the no stuff about subframe connectors, I'm not going to be installing it while this thing's in the air. I will be putting it down on the ground. I'll explain that shortly, okay? But right now, what is a subframe connector? If we look underneath the vehicle, you see the floor over here. Here's the floor. Here's a reinforcement for the convertibles. But there's a frame, the front rail right there, that goes all the way out to the front, and it ends right there. This is roughly about middle of the passenger side door. Then we come along. Oh, we see it starts up right over here, and again, this goes all the way to the back. So if we look at, I don't know if it's going to be any good from this angle, but basically you see it from here, where my finger is, going all the way up to right there. So this subframe connector, again, we have basically 2 frames here, and the floor and the body is kind of what's holding this whole car together. It's called a unibody, right? There are some vehicles out there, I don't know them all, where the frame completely runs from the front right to the back. A good example of that's my F-150 truck. Boom, it's got a frame right from the front to the back. It's not unibody or anything like that. Some trucks or SUVs are not like that. So I just wanted to point that out. So the whole idea here is to connect these together with the subframe connector. So now, again, let me just change the camera angle, and then I'll pop this thing in. Actually, you know what? Let's try it by hand first. So here's the subframe connector right here. Okay. And there is a left side and a right side to this. Okay. Typically, the end with the larger, wider bracket here, this part here, is usually the front. Let me go all the way down here. It's hard to do this with one hand. And this is the rear. It's a little bit narrower. Okay. So, so that goes to the front and that goes to the back. Now, it is left and right. There is a slight angle to these things. And you'll see when you go to put it in, it'll be stiffer on one side than a little bit harder on one side than the other. So let's try. It's difficult to do this with one hand, but let's see if I can do it. Bear with me a second. And usually these things will kind of stay in place once you, yeah, okay. I got the wrong side here. Let's put it over on this side. There we go. So I just got that. I just popped that in. And you can see it goes all the way up here in the back, comes all the way across. There's the floorboard. Let me get the light out of the way. Right up to this spot here. Let's get that light a little bit better. So you see it right there. Okay, and it's jammed right up against here. So I got to weld all along here. So this is the driver's side, and you can see it kind of tucks up here. The idea is you want to make sure you have this part, this back part, high up as possible. You can see it's almost touching there. I'll give it a couple taps to get it all the way up. And then you weld all along here. And I'll do the same thing for the passenger side, right? So what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to outline this just to give me a quick indication on where I got to clean up. All right. So let me grab my trusty marker. Where are you? Let's give it a quick outlining so I know where I have to clean up before I weld. And it is kind of, so I'm using the silver Sharpie here. This gives me an idea anyways. And over here, I removed the rear wheel to give me better access here. You can see, yeah, it's still the old drum brakes. All right, so that gives me a good indication where I got to clean. The other thing I want to point out too is, for those of you who've been watching the channel, I replaced the floor pan over here. Now, there's a spot right here where there's a seam, okay? And right here. Now, it's not really totally covered, but I'm gonna put some seam sealer in there so I don't have to worry about it after this is installed, because obviously it'll be welded in. So I'm gonna put a bead of seam sealer in there. I've actually already done it on this side here, the driver's side. May not be able to make it out so much, but it's like right along here. Okay, and then eventually I'll paint all this. It's all primed right now, but I'll paint it all and stuff. So let me do something here. Let me get in there, clean that up, and bring this down off the lift, and then we'll kind of take it from there. Okay, so I'll see you back after I do all the cleaning. I'll do the same thing on the passenger side. All right, so see you in a bit, folks. Before I start cleaning up everything and welding, I need to change my clothes. I'm going to put on something I don't care too much about. So this is more appropriate. Let's get started. So I sanded down the subframe connector. So just the wide shot coming in. You can see where I ground down where it's going to, oops, try to get that on camera. Ground down right where it's going to be welded, did on both ends. Did that actually on both subframe connectors. Now it's time for me to pop it in, and we'll talk about why you shouldn't do this while it's on the hoist, okay? So we'll see you back in 2 seconds. Going to change the camera angle. Okay, so I have it lowered from the hoist. Now you're going to see that, okay, you know, I got the arm still here, but it's not supporting the vehicle at all, okay? I do have the vehicle up on some stands. So you see some safety stands in the back on the axle. I actually have some safety stands in the front. You can barely see them. Let me just go around the front here. Under the lower control arms. So essentially the weight of the vehicle is on its suspension, and that's what you want to do. Some of you may not realize this, but cars flex, right? Let me just put my camera down for a second, and let me show you something, okay? We're going to focus on this crease right here. Now, this door is not properly aligned, whatever. That's another thing on my list. But I'm going to focus on this crease right here. And bear with me one second. All right, so I repositioned the camera so you can get a better view. Not sure how accurate this tool here is. It's been giving me some problems, but it'll give us kind of an idea of what's going on. So I'm just going to measure it out like this. And I'm roughly at about 5.2. Let me just get it in front of the camera. 5.23. There's the gap. Watch as I lift it. So she's completely off lifting out. Let me re-zero this. And we can see there's definitely a change here. Shoot. We're at 8.09. Let me just show you that on the camera. Again, that's in millimeters. 809. So that basically tells you this vehicle is flexing when it gets lifted up off its suspension, right? So I'm kind of wondering, let me lower this again. Kind of wondering if we put in these subframe connectors, if it's going to help out with this. You can see it again doing that. And that's not just this car, folks. You know, every car flexes. Convertibles flex worse. And one of the things, actually, my son-in-law is a mechanic. One of the things he mentions is whenever you get a convertible into the shop and they're on a two-post hoist like this, not on drive-on hoist, you want to release the convertible latches. So, because he's actually witnessed it on a car. I'm not going to say what kind of car it was. But anyways, he witnessed on a car where they lifted and the convertible top ripped because it was flexing so much. I guess maybe the top was also probably worn as well. But so now as a rule of thumb, they always detach that, right? And you can see it. So that's my little gauge that we'll test. You got to stick around to the end to see what the results are on that, okay? So let me get things set up so I can start welding this thing into place, all right? I'll be back very soon.
Never stop, I'll get it if I want it. Gotta make to myself a promise. I won't quit, keep going till I got it. I won't give up till I'm on top.
Yo, no, I ain't the type to give up. If I do something, man, I do it till I get what I want. I turn a business out of nothing into something I love. I got a poker face, but honestly, I'm not one to bluff. I flip a switch, never miss, man, I always stay up. Don't let them see you, bitch, always have a plan to stay tough. This life ahead of you ain't easy, it was built to be rough. But that's what makes a personality, is tragedy, bruh. So keep your head on your shoulders. Now we ain't out here moving rocks, we out here moving boulders. Now we ain't getting posterized, we out here making posters. And we ain't got nothing to hide, we move forward like soldiers. You better wake up for the pay stub or you'll pay up. Don't make love to the game, bruh, fuck the game up. Change up, rearrange stuff to your greatness. Famous for the way up, play the game, bruh.
Never stop, I'll get it if I want it. Gotta make to myself a promise. I won't quit, keep going till I got it. I won't give up till I'm on top, yeah.
You know I'm always honest, there ain't no way I'm ever stopping.
I won't quit, keep going till I got it. I won't give up till I'm on top,
I'm always flirting with pain, she like to hurt me and maim. I'm always working to change, but she's still lurking the same. I keep on building a dynasty while the haters be trying me. But they hate from inside, you see, hate themselves in society. So I let them speak quietly while my actions speak wider. See, they be hiding in privacy with the screen. Oh, the irony to hate someone who's trying to be whatever they would like to be. We all feel the anxiety, we make our own rivalries. Yo, so where is all the positivity? I feel like we all just hate on everything, it's killing me. Thoughts build quick, causing different possibilities. Negative thoughts will cause different disabilities. So
I've got it welded in. This is the rear of the vehicle. If you look underneath, again, you see it there. I know there's concern with clearance and stuff like that, but stuff I've seen, the exhaust will more than likely be hanging lower, so shouldn't be a concern. But you know what? Only time will tell. Now, one of the things for the observant folks, is this closer or further? Here we go. Is right here. This is the rear, and you see how that's kind of open. So what do you do with that? You just leave it alone. Moisture can get in there. It's kind of welded all the way through here to a certain degree. It ships with two of these little metal plates, okay? And that's what they're for. They basically go right here, okay? So you essentially cut it to size and then weld it in. I can't do this with just one hand, so I'm going to do that, cut it, weld it in, and show it to you after it's done. But apart from that, I'll clean up my welds, right? And we'll do the test and see what happens, okay? So you should see this very soon. All right, we're back. I've cleaned them up, and we can see that the subframe connectors are installed. Let me do a bit of a zoom in. There we go. There's the front portion all the way going to the back. Sorry for the light spotlights there. You can see the clearance here. My finger can barely fit through it. Same on both ends. There's that support for the convertible. A couple things I do want to point out. Let me get the light out here so you can see it. This is the front. You might notice right here, there's an opening. Same thing over here. Oh, on this side, there's an opening. You see that? It weld all the way through, all the way around. You don't want to do that. You want water, in case any water gets in there, you want that as a drain. You can weld all the way around if you want to. According to the manufacturer, all you do is need to weld the front and the bottom here and the sides, and that's it. You don't need to go all the way around. If you do, you can. They're saying you don't really need to, but you'll need to remove your interior. My interior's not in, so I figured, what the hell, I'm already here. The other thing, let me just bring it to the back here. So, just the light. There's the back. Again, I've got the cap installed over here. I don't know if you can see it. I pointed it out yesterday. Right where my finger is. Let's see, right here. The cap that covers it. Then down here at the bottom, get that. You'll see I didn't weld all the way in. That's just a bit of an opening here, just in case moisture gets in there. It's got a way to come out. Okay, here's the moment we've all been waiting for. It's still on the on its suspension, so it's on the stands there. Everything's all welded in, as I mentioned before. Let's lift it, and I know there's going to be deflection. It's not going to get rid of it, but let's see if it's done anything there with that. All right, so here we go. Seeing it open it up. It didn't open up. To me, it didn't open up as much, so I got to step in front of the camera. I apologize, folks. Oops. I'm at 7.47. $7.47. Let's recap what we did. So, thank you very much for sticking around so long and watching this video pretty much to its end. If you haven't already done so, please subscribe to the channel. All right, so if we recap it, I'll post the numbers here. So we started off at rest. The gap would have 5.23 millimeters. I'll post that up here. Prior to the subframe connectors install, when we lifted it off its suspension, it opened up that gap by up to 8.09. So that was a deflection of 2.86 millimeters. Again, all those I'll post up here, right? Right up there. After we put in the subframe connector, what we just seen, it is now the opening was 7.47. Doesn't sound like a big difference from 8.09. That gives us a deflection from the original of 2.24 millimeters. Again, I'll post all that here. And so what's the difference between the two? The difference is 0.62 millimeters. Again, not a big, doesn't sound that big, to be honest with you. So we have a less deflection of 0.62 millimeters. And if I do my math correctly, that gives us roughly about a close to 22% increase or benefit. Okay, so it's deflecting less by 22 degrees. Okay, now the subframe connectors aren't designed just for that. I want to jack it up and put it down. They're really designed for for torsion. Remember, you got your front subframe connectors, sorry, your front rails, and you get the rear rails, and the floor is and the body's kind of what connects them too. So when you tromp on your engine, you know, the vehicle twists, right? So the subframe connectors are there to help with that, prevent that, or make it more rigid, right? These unibody vehicles, over time, you know, you hammering the gas, going through potholes and stuff, it's flexing the floor, welds crack and stuff like that. So that can be a problem, especially if you put in a high power engine in there. Again, I haven't put the engine in yet, still working on that. We'll see, but I may be dropping like a 500 horse engine into it, and we'll have to see what happens there. Could I improve on this? I'm sure I could. I know at some of the Fox body Mustangs, you have the railings. It's almost like a ladder system connecting the subframe connector to the um, again to the outside of the vehicle, almost like a ladder system, so to the running boards. I was looking to say there, right? But anyways, that's it. Thanks again for sticking around and watching the end of this. I hope you enjoyed it. If you enjoyed it, hey, click on that like button. If you found it entertaining at all, hit that like button, right? And again, if you haven't subscribed to the channel, would really appreciate that. It does help me make content. Also, leave any comments down below. If you've got a convertible Mustang with subframe connectors and you're able to measure the deflection, I'd be curious to see what your results are, right? By the way, my vehicle still has like the engine in it, all that stuff, transmission. If it didn't have all that stuff, it wouldn't flex as much, right? Obviously. So again, you know, I'd be curious to hear from anybody. Stay tuned for some more videos up and coming. There's a car. It's a flea market actually coming up within about a week or so, a week and a half, and I'm going to be covering that. So thanks again. Have a great day, and see you soon.